Hello students, we shall take up the principles of growth and development today in our lesson. We've already discussed the meaning of growth and the concept of development. I hope you are clear with the differences between growth and development. Though they may be technically different terms, but however the principles for both of them remains the same. We shall discuss the principles one by one and take up their educational implications along with. Educational implications are very important as far as your competitive exams are concerned, because generally you get questions from the educational implications of the principles, and as such hence they must be clear with you. So we'll take up, and I hope that after this lesson you will be able to get a deeper insight into the principles and their educational implications. So let's move ahead. The first principle of growth and development says that development is a continuous process, or the principle of continuity. When the word continuous means something which is regular in its occurrence, and similarly when we talk of development is a process which starts, some psychologists say, start once the child takes birth and it continues till our death. So whether we are in our adolescent age, or we are in our old age, or we are in adulthood age, the process of development shall continue forever. A few people say that development starts even before birth, that is in the womb of the mother, and it continues till tomb. That's the place where the person rests after his or her death. So whatsoever the case may be, the thing that we need to understand is that development is something which will continue right from the time your consciousness begins, or right from the time the child is conceived, and it will continue till the time the person dies. And we can also say that every experience counts, right? So whatsoever experiences you have one in this world, whether they are positive or they are negative, will have some kind of an attribution towards your developmental processes. I hope the principle is clear. Moving to the educational implications, as when we say our development is very continuous process, as a teacher, as a parent, or as a community member, we need to keep that in mind, that every day whatsoever we are doing, our actions, they are actually the learnings of our child. So this is where the teachers have a very huge responsibility on their shoulder, and they need to plan every day of their lessons very wisely. Even one wrong instance of teaching, or even one wrong kind of an experience that the child may has in the classroom, will have a negative effect on his developmental process. We need to give good experiences to the child always. Not even once should we give any kind of a bad example, or any kind of a bad habit we should portray before our children, because even one bad habit that they may see in their adults will actually become part of their developmental process. Even one wrong example can leave a negative scar on the person's development. And we need to watch our songs, movies, and role models, right? Because every day what is being shown in our televisions, what kind of songs are being played, what kind of movies do our children watch in the cinema halls, and who are their role models, whether they are in form of politicians, or in form of their superheroes, or in form of their actresses, or in form of their neighbors who they see daily in their life. So we need to see that what kind of people or what kind of images our children are following, or their children are seeing around, because that will have a very huge influence on their developmental process. So I hope the principle is clear. Moving ahead to the second principle, which says development is a gradual process. It means that development is not an abrupt process, right? Abrupt process is a process which happens all of a sudden. So development, any kind of development change that you see in yourself, is not a change which has happened overnight, right? For example, if a person has become addict, if a person has started taking drugs, it will not happen in one fine day. It has to be a gradual kind of a transition that may have taken place in the person, and the person may have become addicted to the drugs, right? So that is what they say, ki any kind of, well, whether it is walking, talking, or your eating habits, or your value systems, or your moral values, moral code of conduct, your behavioral instances, nothing happens overnight. These are a gradual kind of changes which occur in individuals' personality. It is a step-by-step process, and which is cumulative. When we say cumulative means something which adds on. So every kind of change that will happen in the child will be added on to the previous changes or the previous characters that are present in the individual's personality, right? So जो आप आज सीखोगे, whatsoever you will learn today, will be added to what you have learned yesterday. So the development will become a cumulative kind of a process, that is, it will be add-on process. It is nothing, ऐसा नहीं है कि we tend to forget our previous experiences and then learn new experiences. No, the new experiences, the foundation of new experiences is laid on your previous experiences. It follows a pattern, and we will discuss this pattern in detail in our next presentation. So when we talk of gradual concept in case of development, we just mean to say that development will happen one by one, a step-by-step process. It will not happen all of a sudden, or overnight changes will not happen ever. And as far as your educational implications are concerned, as a teacher, we need to break down complex topics into smaller parts, because we cannot expect the child to learn very complex topics all of a sudden. He need to learn them, or he will understand them in a step-by-step process. So they should be broken down into small steps, and only when the mastery of a lower step has been done, when the child has understood what is the basics, that the new concept should be introduced. So child should be exposed to learning experiences gradually, though you should not expose the child to the whole chapter on the very first day, or the whole syllabus on the very first day. This may create a burden on the child. The child has to be exposed to different kind of learning experiences one by one. And similar expectations from the child in terms of his learning capacity, because obviously you need to know at what stage of development the child is, and the expectations from the child should be kept according to his developmental stage only. So as we had discussed in the previous slide, the development follows a pattern. So that is the next principle, which says there is uniformity in pattern of development. So whether you are in India, or you are in Australia, or you are in America, the child will follow the same pattern of development. However, the rate of development may differ, but the patterns of development will remain the same. So there are two distinct patterns that we found in the developmental processes of the child. The first pattern is cephalocaudal, which is made up of two words, cephalo and caudal. The word cephalo means head, the word caudal means foot, and the word cephalocaudal means head to foot. As depicted by the red arrow, the developmental process will proceed from head to foot. That is, the child will learn to balance his head first, and then he will learn to walk. Right? So it will never happen that the child starts walking but he cannot still balance his head. This will not happen in a normal child. A normal child will first balance his head, will learn to develop, his brain will develop first, and his feet or legs will develop at the later stages of development, right? The second principle is proximo-distal, which again is made up of two words, proximo and distal. Proximo means near, distal means far. Now when we say the development proceeds from near to far, what does this mean? So if you draw an axis in the center of your body, the organs of the body which lie close to the central axis will develop first, and the organs which lie away from the central axis will develop later. Now what are the organs which lie close to your central axis? The heart. And what are the organs which lie away from the central axis? The hands. So the heart will develop first, and the hands will develop at the last, right? So as you must have heard in your families, once a mother is pregnant, the heartbeat of the child can be heard even before the birth of the child, right? So that means the heart starts functioning even before the birth of the child. But why do we send children to school at 3 years of age? Because only at 3 years of age their fingers are strong enough to hold the pencil and do their work at school. So that means it takes full 3 years for fingers to develop properly. So now this shows that our heart develops first and our fingers develop later on, right? So what do you understand by those things? The brain and the heart will develop first, the hand and feet will develop later on, and the process of development will move from head to toe, center to periphery. And then the next very important principle is there exist individual differences. What do you mean by individual differences? Differences from one person to another. So the development will show differences from one person to another. The pattern of development will remain the same. There will be no difference in the pattern of development. Every child will develop cephalocaudal or proximo-distal kind of developmental pattern. But however, the rate is at the speed of development. That speed of development will vary from person to person and from country to country, because there are a number of factors that are responsible for the developmental rate. So as you see, these are few things that we see around ourselves. a tall and a short. So the height differences you see when you see children in the classroom, they are not of the same height. They are people of the same age, but the height is different. Similarly, there are weight differences. A few children are fat, a few children are thin, and very importantly, there are differences in the academic achievement of the child. When you put up question in the classroom, all students don't raise their hand. A few students raise their hand, a few students don't even understand what the teacher has asked them. So there are differences in their achievement gaps only. So a few statements like, oh, your son has started to speak, but mine hasn't. They are of the same age. They are very common kind of dialogues that we hear around in our society. Oh, your daughter is too independent, mine is not. We do compare our children, but we need to understand that we do not need to compare our children. There are individual differences. No two children will be the same. So as far as your educational implications for the same are concerned, that as a teacher you need to keep that in mind, that you should not keep the same expectation from every child. When you are a teacher, there can be one child who can read the copy very properly, but there may be another child who is not able to read his chapter, even read his chapter, right? What to talk of proper reading. So there will be people with different achievements. There may be a child who gets 100 out of 100. There will be a child who gets 0 out of 100. So we cannot compare the child first. And we cannot keep the same expectations from every child second. And we can never tell a child, if she can do it, why cannot you do it? Every person cannot do the same work, right? So we are not people who have been made to do the same work, and that we need to keep in mind as teachers. The next principle says development is sequential in nature. Sequential again is somewhat related to the pattern, because we have a pattern of development in our development. We have a pattern that we follow in our development. So definitely there is a sequence that exists in our development processes, as you must be seeing in both of these pictures. Every child, before he starts to walk, these are some kind of patterns that we see in every child. Every child first will lay upside down, then will start to something kind of balancing on his limbs, then lift his neck, then start sitting, then he will stand up, then he will crawl, then he will try to lift his legs, and ultimately the child will start walking. And this kind of a sequence of events happen for every child. It never happens that the child starts walking without crawling. This will never happen. Every child will crawl first and then the child will walk. Similarly, when we talk of languages, every child will coo first. Coo is making sounds, then the child will babble, then speak one word, then about a few words like 5 to 40 words the child knows, then he starts speaking sentences, then short questions answers the child can do, then starts writing big sentences, and then he can even identify letters and speak write on his own. So this kind of a sequential pattern is observed in every kind of developmental aspects that we see, whether they are physical, mental, social or emotional, right? So as far as education is concerned, this is a very important kind of a principle. Why? Because we need to maintain sequence in our curriculum also. Our curriculum or our content should be presented in a proper sequential manner. If we miss out steps in between, this will create confusion in children and they may not be able to understand the concepts in a proper way. So unless the child has mastered the basic concept, we cannot introduce the next concept to him. A child who doesn't even know to add one digit numbers, 2 plus 2, 4, can never do multiplication. We need to keep these things in mind, that there is a sequence of development. Unless you know the lower concept, you cannot expect the child to learn some higher concept, right? So difficult tasks should be introduced only after their basic concepts have been taught in the class, or once their basic concepts are clear. A teacher cannot teach pronouns without teaching nouns to the children. Children need to know what nouns are, only then they will understand what pronouns are. So we need to keep these things in mind. We can only first we'll tell them about parts of body, only then we can ask them what is the function of our hand or what is the function of eyes. We cannot expect a child to tell the functions first without even knowing what eyes are. So this we need to keep in mind, that there is a sequence in development, and similar kind of sequence should be followed in our teaching processes, right? So I can teach principles of growth and development only when you know what is growth and what is development. I cannot expect children that don't even know what is growth and development, but I am teaching them principles of growth and development. This will not help me to achieve my objectives. Moving to the next principle, which says development is an integrated process. Now, what do you mean by integration? Integration means to come together and present a wholesome picture, right? So, when we talk of development, if a person A, the developmental aspects will be, generally we have 4 developmental aspects related to our individuality. That is the physical development, the mental development, emotional and social. Physical, which is related with our bodily changes, mental, which is related with our cognitive changes, social is the kind of a social, when we try understand our social roles and when we try to understand we as part of our society. Emotional is how well we understand our own emotions and how well we understand emotions of other people, right? So basically these are the 4 aspects of development. And when you will see any kind of individual in front of you, his personality will be a sum of all these aspects. So we say development is an integrated process. You cannot talk of physical development alone ignoring the other 3. It will never happen. When we talk of development, it includes in itself all these 4 aspects, right? So development is integrated. That means all the different aspects of development or the different phases of development, they add on together. They present a cohesive picture of an individuality, which we see as the personality of the person, and hence that personality includes all the aspects of, all the sub aspects of development, right? And how it influences our education then? So similar kind of integration is expected in our curriculum. Our curriculum should also be integrated whole. It should not, all the topics that are included in the curriculum should show integration with each other. It should not be a kind of a accumulation of different topics without any kind of cohesiveness between them. So the curriculum should not be a simple accumulation of content. The content should show some kind of cohesiveness amongst themselves, right? So individual personality is a whole integration of all aspects of development. So similarly, any kind of a developmental experience or any kind of a learning experience that we give to a child should focus on all the 4 aspects of development. We cannot ignore the other 3 aspects at the cost of any one, or ignore 2 at the cost of other 2. This can never happen. So whenever you talk of an individual personality, it is a wholesome picture. And when we say wholesome picture, that means all the sub aspects of development are included in that. And hence no aspect of development should be compromised in any kind of a learning experience that we plan for our youth or that we plan for an individual, right? So I hope integration is clear. So integration, the concept should be clear, that the concept of integration says something which is joined together, something which is seen as one is an integrated whole. So similarly, when we talk of development of a person, it is seen as one development which covers all the 4 aspects in itself. So moving ahead, this next principle is also related to the previous one, which says developmental aspects are interrelated. Now, what is the basic difference between being integrated and being interrelated, right? When I say interrelated, this means the physical development will depend on the mental development. The mental development will depend on emotional. Emotional will depend on social. So, any one aspect of development will be interrelated to the second aspect of development. How? Now, suppose if I say a person who is mentally developed, who has a cognitive mastery over concepts. So when the person moves in the society, obviously his social roles are defined accordingly, right? And then that will influence the social development. Similarly, a child, the physical development of the child will also affect his mental development. And that is where we say the different aspects of development are interrelated. If a child is physically disabled, this will have an effect on, some kind of effect on his social development, in the sense that the person may need some kind of extra accommodations or adaptations in the society which a normal person may not need. So this way the different aspects of development are interrelated with one another. And when we talk of interrelation, education, this has a very important role in education. Why? Because educational experiences should be interrelated with each other, and they should be interrelated to the life of the person. They should have some kind of a correlation with the life experiences. The examples that teacher use in their classroom to explain their content should be from the life of the child. They should be of things that they see around each other, around them daily. So we should always try to stick to these facts, that we need to include all the 4 aspects in it, and then we need to see that if my child is physically developed, only then the child can be mentally developed. So all work and no play makes child makes Jack a dull boy. So if you make your child work daily without spending some time on physical development of the child, then overall the child will be a dull child, right? So then similarly, suppose if a child has a poor physical development, we cannot expect the child to have a very high mental development, because the physical development of the child definitely has an effect on the mental development of the child. If I am sick daily, if I am having a headache daily, obviously I may not be able to concentrate on my cognitive aspects also. Similarly, if I am weak in my cognition, right, if I am weak in my understanding, I will not be able to understand what is the importance of a balanced diet or what is the importance of exercise. I may not pay hindrance to my physical development also. So this way we say the different aspects of development are interrelated with each other. I hope this is clear. When we say integrated, this means if my development is 4, it is 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, right? So this is integration. All the aspects will add on and give a one picture of development. When I say interrelation, this means physical is dependent on social, social is dependent on emotional, emotional is dependent on mental, and then mental is again dependent on physical. This says they are dependent on each other. When we talk of integrated, this means that they add on with each other and then they present a wholesome picture of one's personality. The next principle again is very important as far as your examinations are concerned, is that development is a product of heredity and environment. This is the nature-nurture controversy that I have covered in my different lecture. You can always have a view of that lecture to understand the nature-nurture controversy. But when we talk of an individual, he is product of his heredity and development. This is very important kind of a concept that you need to understand, that we are not addition of our heredity and environment. We are not H plus E. We are H multiplied by E. So next we'll discuss that development is a product of heredity and environment, a very important principle as far as your examination are concerned. This is something which is related to the nature-nurture controversy. To understand nature-nurture controversy, you can have a look at my another lesson which talks of nature-nurture controversy. Now when we talk of heredity and environment, we all know that both heredity and environment have an influence on our development. But what is important is the kind of a relationship that they share with each other. It is H into E, H multiplied by E, that makes a person P, right? So that this you need to keep in mind. It is not H plus E. Why H multiplied by E? When we say product, whenever a product is seen between two terms, it makes both the terms very important. Why? Because if one is 0, the product becomes 0. So when we say heredity and environment is H into E, we try to put up a fact that both are important for a person's development. You cannot say that one is 0, the 0 of 1 will actually lead to a 0 development in a person, right? So that's why it is H multiplied by E. This question is put up in many times in your competitive exams, which says how is heredity and environment influencing a person's development. Is it H plus E, H minus E, H divided by E, or H multiplied by E? So remember, it is H multiplied by E. Now what is the role actual of heredity and environment in our development? So when we discuss the role of heredity, heredity lays a roadmap for development. Now what do you mean by a roadmap for development? How you will develop? The map is fixed in our heredity, right? A mango seed will grow into a mango tree. We cannot make a mango tree grow into a lychee tree. Whatsoever good kind of a nourishment you may give in terms of fertilizers or watering of the other soil types, a mango seed will grow into a mango tree only. Why? Because that is the roadmap for the development that it carries in its genes. So hence how you will develop will be determined by our heredity, right? It also sets a blueprint. Blueprint is the basic kind of a map of our development, which is determined by our heredity. It sets limits for our development, right? How much you will develop is also determined by heredity. Now, to understand this, I put up a question in front of you. How much water can you put in a 1 liter jug? Think, how much water can you put in a 1 liter jug? Many of you will say 1 liter. But can we put a half liter of water in the jug? Yes. So the range will vary from 0 to 1, any amount, but not more than 1. Why? Because 1 is the carrying capacity of the jug, which has been determined by the make of the jug. So similarly, you also have a carrying capacity of your development. How much you will develop, the limit is determined by heredity. Environment can help us to develop within that limit, but not beyond the limit of heredity, right? Our gender, again, you have seen when we talk of the differences in the development, we do observe the boys with a different kind of a developmental milestones than girls. There is a difference between both. So gender is again determined by our heredity. Again, we can understand this in detail in our coming lessons, how gender is determined by heredity. And similar is genetic abnormalities like Down syndrome, Turner syndrome, many kind of abnormalities which a person carry, a number of kind of mental retardations which a person carries since birth and which are due to its defaulty genes. So they also have an influence on the development. So this is where the hereditary influences are observed. As far as the environment is concerned, it has a very huge role to play in our development, because environment will actually includes all kind of environment, the physical, the social, cultural and the religious environment. And I need not explain it in very detail, but then you all know the kind of nutrition you get, the kind of diet you get, the kind of air we breathe, the kind of water we drink has an influence on our development. Our thoughts, what kind of thoughts come in your mind, our perspectives towards life, our lifestyle, our value system, our morality, our aspiration, which are very important aspects of our development, are all influenced by environment. So we can say both heredity and environment have their own roles to play. In their own best way, they influence the development of the individual. Moving to the next principle, which says development is predictable. Predictable means you can guess out how much a person will develop. Why? Because there is a pattern in development. So when you have a pattern in development, obviously you can put up the expected development that we may observe. We are able to guess onto that. There is uniformity of pattern. First we have a pattern, then those patterns are uniform for each one of us, and then our genetic influences are also huge. So by looking at the parents of the child, we can always predict the development of the child. And when we say development is predictable, how it influences our education systems, it helps us to keep expectations in terms of learning outcomes, because then you can always expect what a student of class 1 can do, what a student of class 2 can do, because development is predictable. This can be some kind of a general expectations can be kept from all children who are studying in a similar class and are of the same age group. Hence we can plan experiences according to that, and even while planning experiences, we can keep the maturation level of child in mind, and more or less people of the same age, if they are average found in the average of the curve, they will have similar levels of maturation. Some general curriculum can be fixed according to the age. So though we say we need to keep individual differences in mind while planning our learning experiences or planning our curriculum, but still we can have some kind of a general curriculum which can be taught to all children. Exposing child to age appropriate and development appropriate tasks. This again you cannot make a child of class 1 do what a child of class 5 can do, right? So whenever we have to expose child to the kind of content he should see on television, to the kind of content he should read in his book, the kind of experiences that the child should be exposed to, they all should be age appropriate and development appropriate, the kind of development the child has achieved. And this can be done beforehand, even before looking at the child. So I can expect all 4-year kids to be walking on their feet, to be able to talk, to be able to express themselves. This is general kind of an expectation that can be kept from a 4-year-old child, because development of all 4-year child, if they fall in average category, will be similar. And then again, this is very important, which says development is spiral. If you see 2 arrows here, one which goes vertically, one which goes horizontally. The vertical arrow depicts the linearity in the development. The development ultimately is a linear kind of a concept. We go straight into a line of development, but however the way it proceeds is spiral in nature. Now when you see spiral, the second arrow points to the kind of levels which remain constant in the development. So whenever a child develops, what happens is you observe some kind of plateaus in development, periods which are called lag periods, when there is actually no kind of development which can be directly observed. But what happens is, like, suppose if a child is in his infancy, you will see every month the weight of the child changes. But after 1 year, the change in the weight cannot be observed like that. But eventually, when the child moves to early childhood, it has very fast rate of development. But when the child moves towards late childhood, the development rate slows down to, even then we can not even see if any change is happening or not. Now those periods are called periods of lag. So development doesn't move like a straight line, it moves like a sprint, where we have periods when actually we feel there is no development taking place, but what is happening during those periods is that the body is consolidating or recapitulating what all development it has observed in the past, or what all development it has occurred with it. And then once the development is consolidated, then it moves ahead to the development of the to the next stage of development, right? I can give you an example to understand this. Suppose I have a bank balance and I keep throwing money in the bank without even realizing how much money I have. Will I be ever able to use that money properly? No, because you actually won't ever know how much money you have. So similar is to the development of a person. If the person keeps on developing without even realizing how much the person has developed, he may not be able to use his development to his best. So what happens is, when we develop, after some period of development, there are periods of lag when actually no development takes place or observable development takes place. But what the body is doing is, the body is consolidating or kind of recapitulating to all the previous developmental experiences, so that it can keep good experiences with it and then move ahead to the next stage of development, right? Now, how is this important in our education? Again, very important. Why? Learning plateaus. There will be periods in the learning of the child when your child may not show much of learning taking place. So we can expect some kind of lags in our learning curve, some kind of areas, learning plateaus. It is but natural. So we should expect our child to show some kind of learning plateaus and respect those plateaus when actually the child doesn't show any kind of active learning, but however the child may be consolidating his previous learning experiences. Consolidate what you have learned before moving ahead. So as a teacher, please conclude, please journalize, please summarize what all the child has learned in the previous class, so that he can lay foundation of his new learning experiences on his previous learning experience. And do not just keep putting facts in your mind, recapitulate the knowledge. Okay, so it's not about keeping on reading newspapers, keep on reading books without even realizing what kind of knowledge we have accumulated. You need to sit and revise in your brain what all you have done. Give importance to generalizations and pauses in learning experiences. So relax, rest periods, they are also very important. Break period is very important. Recess is very important, because you have to give break in your learning experiences to your brain, when the brain will actually passively accumulate or generalize what all you have learned earlier. So I hope this is clear. I acknowledge these were the few websites from where we took the pictures that were shared in the slide. So we acknowledge them, and thank you for listening to me, and I hope happy learning and the principles are clear with you. Thank you.